Podcast with myself, Ollie.
And me, Lily.
So we've got another episode on the way, and the guest for this episode is South Australian legend Andrea McCauley. So make sure you stick around for that one. But before that, of course, you've got to listen to us natter about cricket as always. And Lily, where better to start than the Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, so the Commonwealth Games really has got off to a flying start, hasn't it? As well as it obviously being cricket, all the other sports. I know Australia are winning gold, so I'm pretty sure they're topping the table. Could be wrong, but the women's Australian cricket team are also very far ahead and doing really well there. But to start, on the 29th of July was the first game, and that was India versus Australia, where Australia won by 3 wickets. And that was an interesting game, wasn't it? Because Australia weren't originally looking like Australia, but still managed to win it anyway.
Yeah, that's what you can do when you're a good side, though. India got off to a flyer. You're right. Smriti Mandana was hitting the ball to all corners of Edgbaston. I was watching that going, yeah, India could be onto a winner here because she was playing some unbelievable cricket. Verma as well, scoring 48, and you had Harmanpreet Kaur, as good as she is, scoring 52. So India looked onto something, but they sort of just fell away towards the end of their innings, didn't they? They were 117 for 5. They were a couple for 140 for 6 with a couple of overs to go. And you're just thinking, if you can get to 160, maybe 165, a good last couple of overs, you might be onto something. And that might have been enough, but not to be. So, poor end to the innings, but a lot of positives for India to take from that game. And then Australia doing what Australia do and winning games after starting behind the 8 ball. You had Jess Jonathan with the ball, taking 4 wickets, Megan Shute with 2. And then with the bat, Ashley Gardner, she played wonderfully. Grace Harris with 37. And then in the wickets column, you had 2 Singhs with the 5 wickets between them, 4 for Renuka and 1 for Meghna. So, good bowling effort from them. But Australia doing what Australia do and winning games that, they don't play at their best, they're in second gear and they can still prevail.
On another note, how good was it to see Grace Harris play? Just, in my opinion, such a brilliant player, and it was so exciting to be able to see her get that opportunity, which I've been waiting for so long. I'm super happy that Grace Harris was able to show what she can do, because she got 37 off 20 balls. A nice little cameo there, I think was really good.
Yeah, it was. And what have we always said about Australian cricket? I say it quite a lot. It's one of the favourite things that I can say when I talk about Australian cricket. They always find somebody. Men's cricket, women's cricket, top order, middle order, bowlers, batters, whatever. There's always someone on the production line. And Grace Harris has really stepped up here, which is good to see. If she gets to run at it, then she could potentially be that bridge between the top, middle and tail, really, I think. The way she batted was a real positive, and again took Australia over the line when they didn't start things too well. They lost a wicket in the second ball of their innings, and they were 34 for 4 at one stage. Good run rate, but 4 wickets down with 4 overs gone is never great. But to have the glue in your innings, as Ashley Gardner and Grace Harris were in a sense, glued their innings together and made sure that they could be on for a winner, is really positive. So definitely echo the sentiments.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to the next game, it was Barbados versus Pakistan. Now, actually, we did get an explanation as to why it's Barbados, because last episode we were very confused as to why it was Barbados. But should I just read out the message that I received?
Yeah, you can. Just to clarify the position that we were in, we obviously knew that West Indies couldn't, because they're not a nation as such. They're a collection of islands. But we were just wondering why it was Barbados more than anyone else. Why it was Barbados over someone like Jamaica or St Kitts and Nevis or something like that. So we got an explanation, which was good.
Yeah, so Polly, obviously from Naughty Child Podcast, who we've mentioned a couple of times in previous episodes, sent me a message letting us know that she listened to the episode and thought she'd answer it and just clear it up for us. But basically, West Indies doesn't really exist, and it's just a collective of Caribbean islands. So when it comes to multi-sport events, they do it by nations or islands. And because the West Indies is neither, athletes in other sports compete for their home island, for example, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, etc. Barbados are representing the West Indies because they won the domestic West Indies comp, similar to the Charlotte Edwards Cup. I think there were supposed to be formal qualifiers, but COVID prevented it. So they used the 2019 winners, she thinks. So that was the short answer. And apparently it's more confusing than that. But that one is the one that makes the most sense. But yeah, that does actually explain things, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and it's always good when you get someone like Polly clarifying things for us and relieving the confusion where there otherwise is some. So thank you, Polly, first of all. And again,
Yes.
she gets a fair bit of airtime on this podcast. But if you haven't gone and listened to hers, then alongside ours, then you know what you're doing, kind of thing. So it's good to have a mutual bit of support on the pod and reciprocal, which is good as always. But if we go on to that Barbados game, off the little bit of the tangent that we've just been on, they got a win.
They did, which was really good, wasn't it?
It certainly was. Hayley Matthews obviously plays for the West Indies outside of the Com games, and she was wonderful. Potentially outshone with the bat slightly. She made 55, which is not bad at all. 51, I should say, off 50 balls, not 55. But the wicketkeeper, Knight, not quite Heather Knight, but maybe the second best Knight in international women's cricket, but a very, very good knock that even Heather would have been proud of, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was really good, wasn't it? And like we said, it's obviously not the West Indies, so it's not names that we're used to seeing every now and then, but to see other names who aren't as big or in the media, I guess, is really good to see these other, younger and emerging players to be given that opportunity. And yeah, to be fair, I don't really recognize a lot of these names, but they're definitely names for the future. So I think it's really exciting to see these Barbados players be able to show what they're capable of. So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, and we're referring to Spicy Knight first of all, rather than Kashona, because there's two Knights that are playing, and so just to clear that up. And I think it's a good vehicle this for the West Indies as well, because there's players here playing on a pretty big stage that maybe otherwise wouldn't have, got such an avenue to express themselves. So I think that could be good for the West Indies as a whole in other international tournaments going forward too.
Yeah, definitely. But in the Pakistan side, there wasn't many big scores, was there? The highest score there was Nida Dar, who got 50, not out. But other than that, it was everything under 20. So that's, probably why they weren't able to secure that win. And, Barbados only losing 4 wickets. So that was that game. Pretty good. Now, next up, South Africa and New Zealand, where
New Zealand won, of course.
Yes.
New Zealand won, and it's by 13 runs. And this
are we surprised?
Well, I mean, this just shows New Zealand did what Pakistan couldn't, and they had multiple batters who went big, but no one went as big as Susie Bates. 91 not out, absolutely wonderful. It was remarkable, and it really set up the win. Obviously, they were only 2 down at the conclusion of their innings. And I think they lost a wicket off the last ball of their innings too. So there's only the 3 batters that we used in Sophie Devine, Susie Bates, and Amelia Kerr. But Sophie Devine 48, Bates 91, and Amelia Kerr 20. It's unreal what they put together. And in the end, I caught a bit of the end of the run chase for South Africa because I was busy beforehand and just switched it on towards the end. And they were never likely, were they? As soon as Chloe Tryon went, which was a pretty good run out, to be fair, by Jensen, there were no chance from there. So good win for New Zealand, and yeah, we're not really surprised, are we? As you say.
No, well, obviously, just coming off the back of a very hard tournament for South Africa against England. To be completely honest, you wouldn't think much would have changed in that process because it would have literally been a couple of days changeover. But it would have been nice to see them kind of come back, stronger and better, really, and just learn from what they took from that England series. But it doesn't look like they have, which is a bit unfortunate, where South Africa still aren't able to get any wins under their belt. So yeah, look, maybe I just don't know what's happening. South Africa needs to take a big long look at their team and try and figure out what's going on there. But yeah, again, disappointing from South Africa. Really should be expecting more from such top quality players. It's just not working out for them.
Yeah, and 168 is a target in 20 overs, especially with some of the players that they've got in the lineup, you'd think would be somewhat gettable. You've got, Mignon Dupree, who started, Laura Wolfart started, couldn't really go on with it. Chloe Tryon and Sine Luce both made over 30. So if they have, players who go on with it and make 50s, 60s, 70s, they probably win that game. Even if one just goes on, they probably win that game. And we're not here talking about the problems that are permeating through South African women's cricket that have come about as a result of this tour.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're completely right, and like you said, they have got the talent and they have got the big names to win those games. They're just not, and yeah, it's like they're such a talented team, and we know that because they've played in tournaments like the WEBL and the 100 and national series against other countries, but they're just not doing it at the moment. And yeah, it's not even with the batters, but they've got Shabnam Ismail in the bowling as well, so good, and Ayobonga Kaka as well, so good, but they're just not able to get those wickets at the moment like they need to. And yeah, like it's an all round just not very good performance from South Africa. So hoping that they can, yeah, change up within the next couple of days and well, tomorrow really it actually will be in another rematch against England. So that's going to be an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what changes from obviously the series that we've had recently, and if South Africa can learn, because they're a side that can go there and win that game if they're good enough. But are they good enough?
Yeah.
That's what the question is that will have to be asked. So we're through half the games already. Another three to talk about. First of all, England winning their first game at the Com Games, the home Com Games, winning by 5 wickets over Sri Lanka. And in the end, once that total was set of 106 for 9, Sri Lanka, England were always going to chase that down, and they did it in a canter, really, if we're being honest. Top of the order again, not quite working out. You had Gunaratne out for a golden duck. If you look down the order, there's only a couple that went into double figures. You had De Silva, 25, Pereira, 17. Really, nothing really got going for them. I think the pleasing thing from an England point of view is that the wickets were shared around rather evenly, with Catherine Brunt taking 1, Izzy Wong with 2, Sophie Eccleston with 3, Sarah Glenn chipping in, Freya Kemp chipping in, and Alice Capsey and Nat Siver were wicketless. But it just shows that even when you get Nat Siver wicketless, England can still skittle teams like Sri Lanka and go on to win easy.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it's so good to see Freya Kemp get her opportunity and take 2 wickets as well, because she's younger than us. She's 17. So for her to be a part of that Commonwealth Games is brilliant. And for her to take the wicket of Chamari Atapatu is brilliant for 10 there, getting out the Sri Lankan captain. That is definitely one that she will probably be remembering for the rest of her life. But yeah, so brilliant to see Freya Kemp get that opportunity, and Izzy Wong as well, just still thriving and still doing so well off what she's been doing in that series against South Africa. So yeah, really good to see those young players do so well. Alice Capsey, hopefully she can get a couple more wickets in the next game, but it's still good that they're giving her the opportunity to bowl within that squad when you have players such as Nat Siver and Catherine Brunt.
Yeah, certainly. We've spoken a lot about England over the course of their series with South Africa leading into the tournament. So we may move on, because we've got to give light to all the other nations that are playing international cricket. And we've spoken about Pakistan and India a little bit earlier on, or certainly Pakistan, and then India throughout their game with Australia. But Pakistan again not putting the numbers on the board to win. Obviously, they lost to Barbados. They've lost again here. 99 all out they were, Pakistan. And again, it's a story of not many really putting their hands up with the bat.
Yeah, no, it's really disappointing to see, because they are obviously a good team, and they're in the Commonwealth Games for a reason. So it'd be really nice to see some of their players step up and score the big scores that they need to. But again, just couldn't really get going, could they? It's we've seen the same story in the World Cup as well. So yeah, really disappointing from Pakistan. And I was hoping that they were able to get a win there, but India just too good on the day.
And Smriti Mandana, who was caught behind against Australia, who started really, really well, was able to go on with it. 8 fours and 3 sixes in her 63. And when you've got someone making 63 in a game where, you only need to chase 100 down, you're not going to lose. Or, 999 times out of 1,000, you're going to win. And so it proved.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, look, just good again from the India team, really. I mean, like I said, weren't chasing too much of a score down, but yeah, I mean, it's been good to see them win again, which I think the India team and the Indian fans will be really happy about.
Yeah, certainly they will. Another set of fans who'll be quite happy is Australia, of course. They've always got a reason to be happy, and they've got plenty of reasons to be happy with this emphatic win. Barbados 64. That's all they made in their innings. Australia chasing it down in 49 balls.
Yeah, it's I mean, look, I was to say I'd be surprised would probably be a lie, but there's always an opportunity to take Australia down. You never know, but unfortunately, Barbados just weren't able to do it. Australia just knocking off the total in 8 overs, I think, is really something else, and wasn't expecting them to do it that easily.
Well, no, but once you see 64 all out or 20 overs, if you're having trouble chasing that down with the firepower and class that Australia have got, there's issues there. And Australia didn't have any issues. Alana King taking 4 wickets, McGrath with 3, Gardner with 2. And then with the bat, you had Meg Lanning, 36 unbeaten, Alyssa Healy, 23, just under a run a ball. So they did it again really, really easily. And it's not really surprising one. It's more surprising how it happened and how easy Barbados let it happen. But to see the result itself isn't actually all that surprising. If we have a look at the rest of the Commonwealth Games, and if we move forward a little bit, you've got England playing against South Africa tomorrow as we record this. So again, we're able to break the fourth wall, and no one here knows what's going to happen by the time that game happens. So you're with us on that one. You've of course then got New Zealand and Sri Lanka, Australia, Pakistan, Barbados then play India, South Africa will go up against Sri Lanka, New Zealand, and then England will play against each other to round out the group stages. And you've got the semi-finals, finals, and playoffs. And then, of course, you've got the final to round it out on the 7th of August, Birmingham time, and 8th here in Australia. Interesting to see whether Australia will be playing in it.
Yeah, I mean, looking forward at these games, the game I'm probably most looking forward to, as well as, the lesser known nations, I'm really looking forward to England versus New Zealand. I think that's going to be a really good challenge. And like we said, England have done so well over these past couple of games, but New Zealand have just shown that they've still got that firepower, even though they've taken on quite a young team. So I'll be really, really interested for that game, and really looking forward to that one. But looking forward to all the games, really. I'm sure I'll be tuning in to England, South Africa tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's a friendly time for us here, isn't it? 7:30 for you, isn't it? But
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, New Zealand, England, 2:30 start for you, 3 o'clock in the morning for me.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be doing that.
Yeah, so I understand why you're doing it from a Birmingham point of view, from a local point of view, but to the Commonwealth Games organisers, you've not really helped us Australian locals out. But I completely
come on, guys.
I understand as to why, and I'm not going to give you pelters over it. So don't worry about that. But yeah, that's pretty much the Com Games roundup. Have we got a prediction? First of all, we'll probably record another one before the time that the games are out. But what do we reckon?
I'm going to be a bit controversial here, and I'm going to go New Zealand Australia final.
I'm just going to go off complete vibes and say that England are going to do what the Lionesses done and win at the home tournament. I'm just going to go complete and utter vibes, and congratulations to the Lionesses, even though this isn't a football podcast. Brilliant to see that women's sport is improving, which is always good to see. And hopefully England can repeat the feat and we can sing that cricket's coming home, right at the top of our lungs if you're in Edgbaston or if you're halfway across the world. But that's about the Commonwealth Games done, I think.
That is the Commonwealth Games roundup. Looking forward to the next upcoming games, and that's our predictions. It'd be good to hear if anyone else has any other predictions. Let us know. But
which you can do on multiple platforms now with all the things that we've got going on with the email and the TikTok and the like, which we'll get to, I'm sure. But if we do have a move on,
the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy, like we have been recapping these past couple of weeks, is on hold because the 100 starts soon. Obviously, we've got no Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy games to talk about, but we can do a little 100 preview, can't we?
Yeah, that'd be nice, actually.
So the first game of the 100 kicks off on Thursday, the 4th of August. Now, that is Australian time. Not sure whether that is the time in England.
It's going to be the 3rd of August because it's a 4 a.m. start here. So it's going to be the 3rd of August.
For Australian fans, I'm sure we'll all be watching the first game on repeat the next morning because there is absolutely no chance that I'll be staying up till 3:30.
Or if you're really, really committed, and fair play, hats go off to you if you're going to stay up till 4. Probably waking up and setting an alarm from personal experience at that time probably works better. And that's somewhat feasible. But if you're a Brave or a Fire fan, that may be the option that you have got to take, because that is the first game at Hampshire's ground, of course, the Ageas Bowl, the Rose Bowl in Southampton.
Yeah, now, actually, just to clarify, Ollie, we need to discuss what teams we're going to be supporting and why. I feel like that only makes sense.
Well,
So
I know exactly what I'm supporting.
who will you be going for in this year's 100?
Manchester Originals, with a large soft spot for Birmingham because that's where Liam Livingston is.
Yeah. So who are you most looking forward to watching in the 100 this year for the Manchester Originals?
Calvin Harrison. DJ at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Cricketer by day, DJ by night. But no. On a serious, yeah. Brilliant. He's one. Right, he's going to be a podcast favourite now. Calvin Harrison. He's one that I'm looking forward to. Josh Butler, of course. He does what he does. He's wonderful. Jamie Overton would be good to see. Andre Russell, Dre Ross. So it's quite a star-stacked lineup. Matty Parkinson as well, I quite like. Phil Salt, another Lancashire player as well. So interested to see how he goes. And then on the women's side of things, Kate Cross, former podcast guest, of course, Deandra Dotton, Sophie Eccleston. There's loads. Lizette Lee. There's plenty. Amy Satterthwaite, I should say, and Ellie Threlkeld. So plenty that I'm looking forward to. And of course, being a Lancashire fan, I feel like I'm indebted to support the Originals. Especially with me being born in Manchester, it makes a lot of sense. But soft spot for Liam Livingston because he is probably my favourite cricketer at the moment, especially outside of the England Test scene, men's Test scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I actually think we've selected a pretty good team here. With the Originals, obviously, it's always good to see Australian faces go over. So it'll be really good to see Sean Abbott and Ashton Turner over there. Looking forward to that. Former Strikers player Phil Salt also will be really good. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Richard Gleeson as well as their wild cards. So that's going to be interesting. But you got to love Joss Butler. You can't go wrong with him. So it'd be good to see him play as well.
Yeah,
but
are you
like
going with the Originals as well, or?
Yeah, no, I've been convinced by Crossy to support the Originals. I've got a shirt.
He's done well. I was just seeing if you were gonna. I was just hoping you weren't gonna defect from the original bandwagon.
I look like very much like you. Obviously, I will be supporting Originals, but I have got a big soft spot for Birmingham Phoenix as well because they obviously were the first team that I kind of selected. So, yeah, that's that. But yeah, really looking forward to seeing Kate Cross. I'm also really looking forward to seeing Amy Campbell as well because she's made the move over from the Northern Superchargers. So it'll be good to see her in Manchester this year.
It's a bit of an interesting move. Like that's a bit of a Roses crossover, isn't it? Because obviously Northern being, of course, the Yorkshire-based side, the Leeds-based side, going over to from White Rose to Red. Interesting one.
Yeah. Well, she also played for the Northern Diamonds in their setup, but then she moved over to Central Sparks. So she's kind of, if she were to be following where she's playing now, it'd probably be Birmingham Phoenix would be the most local. But she's playing for Originals. So good to see there. Again, Sophie Eccleston, really good. Georgie Boyce has done pretty well in their domestic stuff this year. So yeah, be good to see her. Emma Lamb obviously proved her worth over the past couple of games. So super excited to see her. And the two Kiwis, Amy Satterthwaite and Leah Tahuhu, really good. And also absolute gun of a keeper, Ellie Threlkeld. She's so good. And I'm really looking forward to seeing her keep. But yeah, that's the Originals. Looking forward to those games. And I'm actually going to 400 games this year, which I think is...
Not 400, just to clear that up for those who... It was a bit quick. Not 400. As in,
just say four. Oh, no.
For the 100 games.
I'm not going to 400 games. I'm going to 4 of the 100 games. Yes.
Yeah, nice. And in those games, of course, we've got we'll look at the first week from the men's point of view. Brave and Fire kicks us all off. Over Invincibles against the London Spirit. Our Originals, which is good to see that we're both on the same page, going up against the Superchargers. So that's going to be an interesting start. At Old Trafford as well. Bring that one on. You've got the Rockets playing against the Phoenix from there. Fire playing against the Invincibles, Spirit Originals, Superchargers Rockets, and then to round out the first week, you've got Birmingham Phoenix and Southern Brave, and then leading on from there, you've got your first double header between the Oval Invincibles and the Northern Superchargers, men and women. So that'll be good to see. Looking forward to how that one goes.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting. So I head over on the 25th of August. That's when I leave. So me and Polly from, like we mentioned earlier, Naughty Child podcast, we'll be having a couple of road trips this summer. Very excited for that. We're going to be heading all over. So obviously my bucket list is to check off all the English cricket grounds, and we managed to check off 4 of them. We'll be heading to the Birmingham Phoenix versus Manchester Originals at Edgbaston, and then we'll be going to Trent Rockets and Welsh Fire at Trent Bridge. Then we'll be going down to Lords on the 30th to watch Spirit versus Birmingham Phoenix. And then we will be heading to Old Trafford for Originals versus Oval Invincibles. So I am very excited. I'm just so excited for that. I've already started buying stuff. I've already started purchasing little travel essentials. So yeah, super keen for that little trip. And it's 24 days away now. So very excited.
Yeah, I feel like with all these interviews that we do with people, you put people under the spotlight and you ask you you this or that questions to get a bit of insight into to our very own Lily Harvey. What's in your travel essentials for this UK trip?
I'll tell you what I've bought recently. So I am very I love buying stuff for holidays that I'll probably never use. So I just like buying for holidays. So I have got these little shampoo bowls. Like, why would I buy shampoo bowls to put shampoo in? But I can just use shampoo in hotels, right? And where I'm staying. So I bought that. But anyway, I also bought this big laundry bag off Amazon, and it's it folds up into a little square, and you open the zip, and it's like this massive laundry bag, so you can put all your dirty washing in it, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
I'll also be taking my Originals top.
Standard.
And then, I know my granddad really likes Weetabix, the Australian ones, so my grandma's requested to bring over a box of Weetabix, so I'll be taking that over for him. And if I end up seeing you, if anyone's listened to this and we have planned to see each other when I go over, expect a couple of treats, because I love giving treats to people. So yeah, expect something.
I'm remarkably jealous.
I'll send you lots of pictures. Don't worry.
Yeah, look, that'd be great. That'd be a nice little consolation.
Yeah. Welcome.
But no, there's still a few weeks before you go. But yeah, certainly we're looking forward to the 100. The pair of us looking forward to the 100, and the pair of us are hoping for an good Originals tournament or an Originals win, especially in one of the 2 competitions would be very, very nice. But I suppose that is a conversation for another day. Now, if we do move on to our wonderful podcast guest, Andrea McCauley, absolutely wonderful. If you're in South Australia, you'll know all about her. If you're not, you're not quite acquainted with what she's done. She is a pioneer for Australian women's cricket. She played for Australia 1 test and 1 ODI, both of those against New Zealand. But I think, Lily, and I think you'll agree, her work off the field is probably more important than her work on it.
Yeah, 100%. She's, like I mentioned to her, she's someone that you just know growing up in South Australia as a girl playing cricket. It's a name that's always been around, and someone that, obviously being the first strikers coach, people my age would definitely know her because she was the first coach and the first kind of big name in South Australian women's cricket. So such an amazing person, and she's done so much for the game. And yeah, we wouldn't be where we are right now without her. So it was really, really amazing to talk to her about all she's done.
Certainly was. And that interview coming up now. Here is myself and Lily having a bit of a chat with Andrea McCauley. Enjoy it. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us today. Could you just talk to us a little bit about where you are at the moment and where you're kind of at in terms of cricket, if you're keeping involved?
Yep. So currently I'm on the SACA board. So I've been there for three years now. So I guess my main role at the moment is just been a pain in the bum to all the administrators about making sure that female cricket is still getting the accolades that it needs to, and of course keeping the SACA honest with making sure they're putting the resources into the women's programs and the club competitions, etc., etc.
That's good. So, I mean, you're obviously very involved in cricket, and you have been for such a long period of time. But how did you first kind of get involved in cricket? When was that, and how did that all come about for you?
Well, I was raised on the Yorke Peninsula, and I've got 3 brothers who all loved cricket, and we sort of lived out on a farm, and I guess our time was spent playing cricket and kicking the football. So these days I would have been even interested in playing footy, but I didn't have that opportunity back then. But certainly when I started, even females playing cricket was not really heard of, and initially there was some few issues with the locals about whether I was allowed to play cricket. But I got involved with some female cricket when I was still over at school, and just went from there. So when I left school, moved to Adelaide and just kept playing cricket, and then got involved with administration as well, because in those days we had a volunteer-run association. We weren't involved with the men's cricket. So even at Cricket Australia level, that it was Women's Cricket Australia and then it was the Australian Cricket Council, so Cricket Board. So they were 2 separate entities. And so I played and got involved with helping out organising the competitions and that sort of thing as well.
So obviously you mentioned as well, like you didn't have the chance to play Aussie rules, I should say, when you were growing up. How good is it to see now women's sport, not only cricket, but other codes as well, growing at the rate that it is, so that more young girls have the chance to play sport?
Yeah, it's just amazing to have watched that unfold over the last probably 20 years of the girls, traditionally playing netball and tennis and those sorts of things, and now we can play anything we like. And sometimes I sit back and go, oh, I'm very jealous of this, but no, it's great that there's so many opportunities. It's maybe not so good for some sports because there are so many opportunities for the girls to play. Everyone's competing to get the best athletes into their sport. But I just love the fact that, we can turn on the news and watch any, the girls running around playing footy. There's, the rugby league and all that sort of stuff now happening with the Commonwealth Games on. You've got the sevens, and so there's so much female sport, so it's fantastic.
Yeah, it certainly is, and definitely in South Australia, you've had quite a profound impact on women's cricket. Was it just that experience of playing yourself and being involved that made you want to ensure that the next generation was able to do the same?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I was playing, obviously I was just a bit oblivious to everything else. It was just we were playing, and then I continued. When I retired, I still stayed involved with some of the administration, and in that time, the men and women's organisations sort of came together under one umbrella. And then I was just fortunate enough that they were looking for some female role models and asked me to start coaching. And then I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, really. And so I got involved with that. And then obviously that's when everything sort of grew once the WBBL came in, I think, at a domestic level. That's really put the women on the map. And I was lucky enough to be coaching when the first strikers team was put in place.
Yeah, and just on that, ever so quickly, obviously the first inaugural WBBL strikers coach. From a coach's perspective, what were you expecting from the competition, and how did reality either differ from that or enforce those thoughts that you had coming into the tournament?
Well, I don't think I had any sort of expectations. It was kind of like, oh yeah, well, this is just another cricket competition. Obviously very exciting, but then as everything sort of the build up and everything started to unfold, it became a little bit daunting in some respects, because suddenly you've got a lot of media and TV and all that sort of thing. So you're not really prepared for a lot of that stuff. So the first couple of seasons were, quite interesting. And certainly for the girls, I think we had to put in place some extra resources around some media training and those sorts of things. So that just to assist, because they go from hardly anyone sort of turning up to watch a game, and then all of a sudden they're walking out to bat and they've got a camera in their face. So it's, can be a little bit off-putting. But some girls excel in that situation, and some go, "Oh my goodness, this is really hard." But it was a very interesting time.
Obviously, I've been a very big Strikers fan right since the very beginning. So I was there for that first season, and I remember we had Sarah Taylor come over and a few other internationals, but she was the one that stuck out to me. So what was it like having her within that group? And, like I said, such a new tournament, not really knowing what to expect, but having such big international names come and play in that tournament.
Yeah, it was almost initially like suddenly you have to know who all the internationals are. And that was something that probably I hadn't taken a lot of notice of, just being involved at a domestic level. But it was fantastic to suddenly work with some of those girls from overseas, and certainly Sarah. I mean, she was the best bat in the world at the time, and there was just so much class about her. Just I had to pinch myself a few times when I was sort of sitting watching her play, going, "Wow, I'm part of this group." And have a look at her, and her hands as a keeper, second to none. She was an interesting character off the field. So, you bring all of that in, and then we had a West Indian called Stacey Ann King. I mean, she's doing some commentating now. So she came out, and just to have those different personalities and backgrounds sort of around the group, it certainly makes things a lot more interesting than your normal run-of-the-mill sort of everyday cricket competition.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was good memories to look back on to that season. I'm sure you'd probably say the same. But if you were to choose any standout moments from coaching the Strikers and the Scorpions, do you have any significant memories that maybe helped you develop as a coach and that you learned a lot from?
I think when I went from being a part-time sort of coach to actually working full-time in the SACA, and just having a lot of the male coaches around me, it certainly helped my development as a coach, because I hadn't had that experience where a lot of the male coaches do, where they play cricket obviously professionally, which I never did, and then they come into the system, so they are full-time cricket, whereas I had to earn a living, and so my day spent doing finance, and all of a sudden I'm now a cricket coach and full time. So there was a lot of learning to be done, but I loved it. Like, the guys were fantastic. When I first went into the high performance department, I was the first female coach, and to have coached the Scorpions, and I was the only female actually in the department. So there was some interesting conversations had at times, but it was great to work with those guys. And then as you talked about the internationals coming into when the system, I had Sarah Taylor come across to play for the Scorpions. And then obviously when the Big Bash kicked off, then she was on top of my list to have her back. But, just having her experience in around the group at the time was a learning curve for me as well as a coach.
So you mentioned there about jumping straight into being a coach and it all being a bit new. So did you have any guidance or help from anybody in the men's setup? Because I guess obviously the men had been going for a couple of years in the Big Bash and all that stuff before the women started.
Yeah, I mean, I had been coaching, so I coached at a club level. I'd coached the West Torrens girls for several years, and I was the assistant coach for the Scorpions for about 6 years before I actually took the role on full time. So I had been, getting some experience that way. And then, it was really Darren Berry was coaching the Redbacks when I first took it on, and he took me aside a couple of times, had a couple of conversations, but it was people like Jeff Vaughan, who was a batting coach, and Robbie Castle, who was the Redbacks bowling coach at the time. I had lots of coffee dates with them, and I had Jeff Vaughan, actually, I got him in to do some work with my good batswomen. So it was great to have. I'd go along. I think the girls would think, what's she doing here, watching a one-on-one session? But it was an education for me as much as it was for them, just to listen to what they had to say to the players. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that time.
It's great to hear, obviously, that we've got that unified sort of setup with the men's and women's departments, or teams, if you like, teaming up and helping each other out in a sense. How important do you think that is in a successful organisation, and how much do you think that helped with the Scorpions and the Strikers?
Yeah, I think it's very important. Obviously now the girls who are coming into coaching probably have been playing as a professional, but I'd still think the men have been sort of around the, that elite level at a full-time level for so long, and it's important that we treat it as one. So it's, rather than the male-female focus, I think if you can sit down as a group and all work together as to, your different strategies and that sort of thing, then you're just going to learn off each other. And I think it's vitally important that the high performance department is now, one department, and obviously that then filters into clubland and that sort of thing, where a lot of the clubs now with their women's teams, but it's just a club, and that's what's expected. You have, a couple of men's teams, you have a couple of women's teams, and in the future, we're hoping that we'll have the pathway for the juniors as well in the women's clubland.
Yeah, and certainly we've spoken about how unified it is now, and you mentioned before how it potentially wasn't back when you were playing. Obviously, you played through the 80s, 90s, and a bit of the 2000s as well. What was the female cricket setup like, especially at the top level during that time? And how different was it compared to now?
Yeah, it was very different. Obviously, we didn't play as much, so I think that was the main thing. We didn't play as much cricket at international level. We had a national carnival every year, so that would run for a couple of weeks. So rather than play like the girls do now, which is, they fly in, play a game of cricket and fly off again, and it goes throughout a season, this was like a 2-week carnival, sort of in the late December, early January, when everyone could take some leave. We paid for everything. So there was some fun times though, with, setting up your fundraising, and it was all sort of a good bonding experience. But so from that point of view, at the end of the carnival, they'd name a Australian team, but that team didn't always get to actually play anyone. So I think towards the end of my playing career in the mid-90s, they had set out Australia and New Zealand. We're playing a regular competition every year. They're called the Rose Bowl, which they still play for. So they'd play 3 games of one-day cricket. And so that would happen each year. They'd alternate between countries. And then, obviously now the girls are full-time, training or playing somewhere all year round, which is great.
It certainly is. The more cricket, definitely the better. Obviously, you played yourself for Australia. You're playing the one Test match. You're involved in that one-day tournament that you mentioned as well. How much of an honour was that to represent your country at the highest level?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It was obviously always a dream when you play a sport. You all want to play for Australia. But to actually achieve it, I think when I first was selected, it was a little bit surreal. But I then had 5 weeks tour of New Zealand, which was pretty good. We played 3 Test matches. Unfortunately, I only got to play 1, and we played 3 one-day games. Again, I only got to play 1. But just to be around the group and travelling, with your green and gold is a pretty fantastic experience.
It definitely is. And I read an interview that you gave a little while back saying that you didn't actually receive your baggy green initially for playing in the Test match, but you've got it now. What was that like not receiving it initially when the men obviously did, and what was it like finally receiving it? And is there any way you actually keep it?
Yeah, I guess at the time it didn't really bother me. I mean, we still got a baggy green. It wasn't the one that they've got, the special one with the embroidery. We had a badge sort of stuck on it with, the coat of arms, and so it was like it is what it is. And I think there was so much that time, you know, there was so much criticism of females playing cricket and what have you, that it was just another thing that you go, whatever. I'm not going to let this upset me. So yeah, but and then I can't remember. I think it was about 2005. So I played in 1990, and then 2005, I think, when Cricket Australia decided that the girls were going to be allowed to wear the baggy green, and they thought the right thing to do was to actually present one to everyone that had played a test match for Australia. So we had a special lunch at a test match that was being played between Australia and India at the time, and got presented with my baggy green. So it is hung up in the house. It's even though I say to people I didn't actually wear that one, but there's a lot of people that walk in, and certainly my nephews, my husband's very proud of it. So it's like, oh, we want to take a photo of the baggy green. So yeah, so it's a good story.
Certainly is. That's brilliant.
Now, you mentioned before about when you did play and you were involved in the teams yourself, it all had to be at a time where people were able to take leave. So obviously it wasn't as professional back then, and people were still working. So now players are contracted, they're professional. So what do you make of that and the progress that Australian female cricket has made over the years?
Oh, well, obviously, I think it's fantastic. Like, I would have loved to have been, you know, a young person now, sort of being able to train and you know, be in the gym and get the coaching and then play as much cricket as what they do now. But at the same time, it was, you know, we had some great experiences. We stayed in some interesting accommodation, which sort of added to the experience. It was what we could afford to do. And yeah, it was what it was at the time, and it didn't take some of the grounds we played at were pretty ordinary, whereas the girls, you know, they get to play on the best grounds now, which is, I mean, it's great, and that's what should be happening. It should have happened 100 years ago, but I think what counts is that, or what matters is that it is happening now, and that's what's important. And we just need more cricket for the girls, but certainly they've had an increase in their domestic cricket for the season coming, which is terrific. But it'd be nice to see all the countries playing Test cricket, and the state competition being a 2 or a 4 day. We've got to get to a 4-day competition at some stage, but how far away that is, I don't know. I mean, certainly I played more red ball cricket. The white ball only came into vogue when sort of the last couple of years that I played. So we used to play over a 2-day competition. And to me, you know, the girls miss out on so much if they don't get the opportunity to play in a red ball, with a red ball. You don't swing it as well, and you know, there's all those sorts of things. So yeah, it'd be nice if we got to that point.
It certainly would. And you're just on that. You're saying that, you know, women, you know, could do with playing more cricket. I think that's something we all agree with. If you were on the board at the ICC and you were able to make these decisions, what changes would you make to ensure that that happens and that more cricket can be played?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talk at the moment with Test match cricket, and I was actually really sad when I sat down with Sophie Devine and Susie Bates I had with the strikers at one stage, and they were sort of saying, well, we don't play Test match cricket. We've never played, like they'd played for New Zealand for, you know, a decade or more, and they hadn't played a Test match. And I just thought, that's, you know, disappointing. I mean, I get embarrassed sometimes when they say, oh, you played for Australia. So if you blinked your eye, you would have missed me. So that is something. More Test match cricket for the girls, for all the countries, not just Australia and England, is something that I'd be asking for at ICC level.
And I'm assuming this is a really obvious question with what's going to be an obvious answer, but I'm sure you're in support of 5-day cricket as well for Test matches.
Yeah, I think so. I think the girls' game has, you know, grown in, you know, with all the professionalism now, like all the training, the skill level, the fitness level, it just keeps improving with the more opportunities that they get. So I think that's the next step, without a doubt. They did play a 5-day test match, and I did sit through it, and it was probably not that interesting back in the 90s, but I reckon now it's a no-brainer. They got to do it.
Yeah, we've had some ripping 4 days recently. I think of the one in Canberra that was a brilliant test match, but if you have that at 5, it just should have been 5. We would have had a result.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's just got to be 5 days, and the sooner that happens, the better, I reckon.
Yep.
Yeah. So now back to kind of the end of your coaching. So after the 2019 season, you passed on the coaching to Luke Williams. So what kind of made you move on, I guess, and why did you step down from coaching?
Yeah, I think I'd been there for 6 years, and I was pretty worn out, actually, because I'm a bit of an old fart, and so I felt like, and I'd also felt like I'd set up a really good program. I had good people around me, and Luke was ready and really keen to coach the girls. So I thought my job is done. When I first went in, like, I was the first full-time coach of the girls program, and I had a part-time assistant and a very part-time physio, and didn't even have a strength and condition. Like, there was all these things that we didn't have, and so gradually over the 6 years I'd fought and got new roles in place, and I felt like the program is where I wanted to get it to, and so it was time for someone else to step in and Luke is a very good coach. So I just felt like we've got him in the program. You don't want to lose him, so put him in charge.
No, that's brilliant. So why him? What did you see in him to fill your spot?
Well, I think he had been in the high performance department coaching the youth male system, and there'd been so many accolades about his coaching. And then, so first of all, I had Shelley Nitsky as my assistant, and then she, of course, well, we know where she is now. She's running the show at Cricket Australia. So she disappeared on me, and then Luke kind of sidled over to me one day and he said, I wouldn't mind coming and coaching in the female system. And I've just about fallen off my chair, and I've gone, that is awesome. So, and then worked with him, obviously, as the assistant. And I thought the girls really, had so much respect for him. And I thought, it's time, because as I said, I had enough, and was proud of what I'd put in place, and felt like this guy's a really good coach. So let's make sure that he's got the right personality for it, and he had the respect. So it was time to step aside and let him take over.
Obviously, you've now stepped aside from that role, but what are you doing, if anything, now in the South Australian cricket world, and how are you keeping yourself involved, if at all?
Yeah, I think I find myself maybe a bit of a mentor. So I've had a lot of the clubs will contact me if they're trying to set up women's programs, or how do we approach this or approach that. They'll contact me if they get frustrated and want stuff put in. We need to change this system or get this happening or whatever it is. So I'm kind of just the person that people will come to and bounce things off. And I'm always up for the fight to try and get something in place. And so I suppose that's where I'm at. And obviously, as I said, I'm on the SACA board, and I just see my role there as making sure, like, being, for want of a better word, but the guru of female cricket. But even in the 3 years that I've been on the board now, just the change in the language around the boardroom there's so much more talk and understanding of where the girls are at, which is fantastic. So that's what it should be. Whereas when I first sat down to my first board meeting, if the girls were mentioned, it was very briefly. So now we're getting a lot of equal space.
Yeah, and that's brilliant. And you've been behind a lot of that, which has been awesome to see. But just a final one from my end. Obviously, you're still on the board at, with the Saka and everything. Have you got any explicit desires to return back to a coaching role as you did with the Scorpions and Strikers, or are you just content with where you currently are?
No, I'm very content with what I'm doing. Not interested at all. I'm getting close to retirement, so I'll eat. So this is why I'm in Catherine. My husband and I are just on a driving sort of working holiday. So I certainly don't want to be throwing cricket balls anywhere.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's completely fair enough. But it's saying that, you've definitely done more than your bit. It's been so brilliant to see you set up such a brilliant pathway for women's cricket in South Australia. And I know I've had so many opportunities playing and being able to do this here. And that's all really thanks to what you set up. I think it's been amazing. And, you've been such a inspiration to many young girls growing up playing cricket in South Australia. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's been amazing. But yeah, thank you very much.
You can cut as much as you want. Thanks, guys. You have a good night.
You too.
Take care. So that was the wonderful Andrea McCauley speaking about women's cricket, how it's evolved, her role in South Australian cricket and the world of that, and how that's all gone on. Absolutely wonderful. A privilege to speak to her. So absolutely quality, and one of our favorite interviews certainly that we have done so far. But that will just about round up another episode of How's That, the cricket podcast.
Now, next week, we will be joined by Matt Short, who plays for Victoria and also plays for the Adelaide Strikers. So a bit of a crossover in states there between us both. But he has been re-signed with the Strikers for the upcoming season. So we talked to him all about that, but that will be coming up next week. So make sure you tune in then. But in the meantime, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at How's That TCP, or you can send us an email at howsthatthecricketpodcast@gmail.com. But that is all from me this week.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks again for having us on, and hope you enjoy the next week of cricket, everyone.
How's that? You missed the bound.